Our brains work better when we're not feeling lonely or socially isolated. And that's particularly true for prefrontal cortex and executive functions. We're fundamentally social. We need to belong, we need to fit in and be liked. Children who are lonely or ostracized have more difficulty learning. People who feel lonely or are focusing on anticipating being alone show worse executive functions than people who feel or anticipate feeling more socially supported. So, for example, one group of researchers gave subjects a whole lot of questions and then said they could tell from their answers for one group of subjects that they were going to have close relationships throughout their lives. They told another group of subjects the opposite, and a third group of subjects unrelated bad news. On simple memorization questions that don't require executive functions, all three groups perform comparably, but on logical reasoning that requires executive functions, those told to expect that they'd be lonely perform worse. Other researchers haven't tried to manipulate this. They simply give people a survey when they come in the lab, and the survey includes questions like, do you feel socially supported? Do you feel lonely? And one research group found that prefrontal cortex functions less efficiently in people who report that they feel isolated or lonely. We need to feel we're part of something larger than ourselves, a group or ensemble working toward a common goal. And we need to feel there are people who care about us, believe in us, and will be there for us. Dan Siegel talks about interpersonal neurobiology because social relations shape and change our brains, our neurobiology. This is a TED Talk by a researcher who inherited a data set that goes from early life through, I think, 80 years of age. And one of his main conclusions is that good relationships keep us healthier and happier, period. Loneliness kills. And it's not just peers, a close relationship with a caring adult can be huge. Mel Hughes looked at all of the early childhood education programs around the world, in every country, any study he could find. And what he found is the variable that matters most in early education is not the number of kids, it's not the adult-child ratio, it's not the quality of the materials. It's not that they don't matter, but they're not the variable that matters the most. The variable that matters the most is the quality of the relationship between the adult and the kids. If the kids felt cared about, they did better. Relationship trumps instructional style, subject matter knowledge, adult-child ratio, having the best equipment, hands down. The critical role of who you are as a person, not just what you do, but how you do it. What you say has less impact than what you do. It's relationships, not programs, that change children. A great program creates the environment for healthy relationships to form between adults and children. The same is true for psychotherapists and doctors. Jerome Frank, in the 1950s at Johns Hopkins, wanted to figure out which type of psychotherapy is the most effective. So is it psychoanalysis? Is it Rogerian? Is it cognitive? Is it behavioral? All the different kinds. And to his great chagrin, it didn't matter a twit which kind of psychotherapy the clinician thought he was practicing. If the client felt cared about by the clinician, the client got better. Then in 2001, Bruce Wampold again looked at the effectiveness of all the different types of psychotherapy. And again, he found the same thing that Jerome Frank found. The client-therapist relationship trumps technique hands down. After approximately a half century of psychotherapy research, one of the most consistent findings is that the quality of the therapeutic alliance, the client-patient relationship, is the most robust predictor of treatment success. Across all types of psychotherapy, nothing predicts a good outcome as reliably as the patient's experience of the therapist as being warm, caring, and genuine, and thus the patient's experience of being seen, understood, and helped. Whether you're a teacher, a parent, a doctor, or a therapist, Your humanity is more important than your knowledge or skill or doing the textbook perfect thing. Okay, I'm going to get a little biological for a minute. A telomere is the protective tip at the end of a chromosome that caps and protects the chromosome from deterioration. So think about it like the plastic tip on your shoelaces that keep the shoelaces from fraying. That's what a telomere does for a chromosome. It keeps it from fraying, from deteriorating. A cell dies when its telomere gets too short. Thus, telomeres determine the lifespan of cells and, by extension, the lifespan of us. If telomeres get too short, the cell, instead of dying, could also become malfunctional, causing inflammation or triggering the development of tumors, of cancer. Early life stress can cause accelerated telomere shortening. So here's an example. This line is no exposures to adverse early life experiences. This is 2 or more exposures. And even by 5 years of age, there's a significant difference in the length of those kids' telomeres. And it gets even larger by 10 years. Okay, this is the study that found that. Maternal sensitivity and warmth, however, completely overrides the effect of early adversity on telomere length. So here are the kids who've had adverse experiences. Their telomeres are shorter, but not if they have a really responsive, warm mom. It totally obliterates the effect of adversity on telomere length. Totally blows it away. And that's the study. Another example that maternal sensitivity and warmth trumps early adversity, low socioeconomic status, social and economic disadvantage, hands down, you can see here. So this is the average number of behavior problems. So higher is worse. This is high SES and low SES. The blue is having a really responsive mom. So if you have a really responsive mom, you're going to show less behavior problems than even the kids in the high SES group. Okay? Even if you're poor and everything is against you, you have a really responsive, caring mom, and you're going to come out great. So you want to buffer kids, you have that caring relationship with them. It's absolutely huge. This is probably also true of fathers. It's just that all the research so far has been done on moms. The people who make a difference in your life are not the ones with the most credentials, the most money, or the most awards. They're the ones who care. We're not just intellects. We have emotions and social needs, but we also have bodies. The brain doesn't recognize the same sharp division between cognitive and motor function that we impose on our thinking. The same or substantially overlapping brain systems subserve both cognitive and motor function. So for an example, there's an area of the brain called the pre-SMA, and that's important for sequential tasks. And it doesn't matter whether they're sequential motor tasks or sequential cognitive tasks. You still need this area of the brain. Motor development and cognitive development appear to be fundamentally intertwined. The different parts of the human being are fundamentally interrelated. Each part, cognitive, spiritual, social, emotional, physical, is affected by and affects the other parts. The best and most efficient way to foster any one of these is probably to foster all of them. We have to care about children's emotional, social, and physical well-being if we want them to be able to problem solve, exercise self-control, or display any of the other executive functions. If a child is stressed, sad, lonely, or not physically fit, the very academic performance a school is trying to improve will take a hit. Returning to my prediction, I don't think I gave this prediction before, so I'm not returning, but activities that will most successfully improve executive functions will not only work on directly improving executive functions by training and challenging them, but will indirectly support executive functions by lessening things that impair them and enhancing things that support them. So what activities directly train and challenge executive functions and indirectly support them by also addressing our social, emotional, and physical needs? Traditional activities that have been around for millennia. For tens of thousands of years across all cultures, storytelling, dance, art, music, and play have been part of the human condition. People in all cultures made music, sang, danced, did sports, and played games. There are good reasons why those activities arose everywhere and have lasted so long. They challenge our intellects, they challenge executive functions, they make us happy and proud, address our social needs, and help our bodies develop. Perhaps we can learn something from the traditional practices of people across many cultures and thousands of years. So I'm going to show you a little bit of 3 programs that I know something about and particularly like, but it doesn't have to be these programs, and I'll talk about that later. There are any number of things that would do this. How many of you have heard of El Sistema? Nobody. Okay, this is such a fantastic program. It was developed in Venezuela. Here, I'll start with, it was developed in the mid-1970s by Jose Antonio Abreu, who's an economist, but he also happens to be a musician and conductor. And he envisioned classical music training as a social intervention that could rescue poor kids. So El Sistema is intended as a social intervention with music at its core. Rather than aiming to produce great musicians, it aims to create community. So intention is not to make you great at playing the music. The intention is to use the music to help you do well in school and in life. It now has spread to 3 different continents and 65 countries. He got the TED Prize for his program and was able to train a lot of other people to implement the program. It's provided free. The instruments are also provided free. It takes all children, even deaf. It has reached over 500,000 children in 25 continents. This is old. It's now 65 countries in 3 continents. The National Dance Institute was also founded in the mid-1970s by an amazing dancer named Jacques d'Amboise. Jacques was the best male ballet dancer in the world for 3 decades. Balanchine choreographed ballets specifically for him. He's received all kinds of awards like the National Medal of Honor. He was a poor kid, a high school dropout headed for trouble. He happened to walk his sister to dance class, and the rest is history. So he figured if dance rescued him, maybe it could rescue other kids. So it's, again, the same idea as El Sistema. The idea is not to make great dancers. The idea is to use dance to help kids do better in school and in life, to help rescue them. It's provided free. It takes all children, no matter their physical handicaps, wheelchairs, pipes and tubes in them, it doesn't matter. Has reached over 500,000 children in some of the poorest areas. Royston Muldoon is a British choreographer known for his work in the field of community dance. He's worked with children and young people in and excluded from mainstream education, street kids, the displaced, people with disabilities, men and women in prison, communities in conflict like the Irish and the British, or marginalized or divided by cultural, religious, social, or economic circumstances. I found out about this because I went to a conference in Vienna, and one of the people at the conference was this wonderful, handsome, proud black man. And it turned out that he had been a street kid, and the work of Royston Muldoon had rescued him. Dance, approached as balanced social, physical, emotional, and spiritual activity, touches every part of us. Okay, the third activity I'm going to talk about is youth circus. I had never heard about this phenomenon, but Jackie Davis came to do her PhD with me. Jackie was a high school dropout. She dropped out at 14 to learn to be a mime, and she went to France to learn from Marcel Marceau. After being a mime for 5 or 6 years, she found out about circus. So she went into circus. And then she learned about circus for disadvantaged kids to help rescue them. And so she went into that. And she had been teaching at a Waldorf school in New Hampshire for 12 years when she felt like, this is so great. All of us doing this all over North America and Europe can see the benefits, but there's no research on it. So she came to work in my lab to get the research to show scientifically the benefits of circus. Almost 200 cities throughout the US have youth circuses, as do many in Europe. Youth circus is circus created and performed by youth as opposed to entertainment for youth. Since the 1970s, youth circuses have used circus arts to instill in young people qualities they need to survive and thrive in society, teaching them the art of life through circus, building character, and inspiring young people. Okay, as long as I was going to advise Jackie, I figured I needed to learn something about this youth circus thing that I'd never heard of before. And they have a biannual meeting of the American Youth Circus Organization. So I went, and I learned poi, and I learned the German wheel, the big wheel, and I did unicycle. I had a fantastic time. While I was there, I met this guy, a strong, proud African-American man. You'd never guess that he was born in prison. His dad dead before he was born, and his mother dead before he was 3. At the age of 15, he was the oldest male in his family, still alive and not in prison. He joined Circus Harmony in St. Louis at the age of 12, and it changed his life. Through his circus skills, he's won international awards and is now enrolled in a prestigious circus university in Montreal. Okay, so I'm going to show you a short video about how it addresses cognitive skills, how it addresses executive functions. I'm not sure which of the 3 are in each video, but the videos together will cover all 3 programs.
The movement itself is very challenging, and they're constantly changing directions, changing counts. People are doing things at different times. That's a big concept for kids at this age.
It's a lot easier to focus, because when you learn to focus on something that's fun, sometimes, if you want to, you can learn to focus on something that's not so fun.
Okay, I made these particularly short. I have a 10-minute long one if you want to see it more in depth. In January of this year, I did something I've never done before. As I paired up with the California unit of the National Dance Institute, the California Dance Institute, which is around LA. And as I gave my talk, the kids of the California Dance Institute, the 4th graders, illustrated what I was saying through dance. So, for example, I'd say what the executive functions are, like I did for you the first day, and why they're important. And as I explained each executive function, the kid illustrated them through dance. And then when I talked about the importance of the social development, the emotional development, etc., what they did is they had alumni talk about it, and again, they had the kids illustrate it. It was wonderful. It's much better than my just talking. None of these programs lets the children get away easily. They hold the children to high standards, and the children rise to the occasion. They have a lot of fun, but they have to work hard. The 2 are not incompatible. They learn a work ethic. To get good, you have to practice, practice, practice. And they get to experience repeatedly that through effort, what looked impossible becomes possible, even easy. Through repeated experience of, there's no way in the world I'm going to be able to do this, to practicing, to now I can do it, it's even easy. Then you go to the next level, and my God, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. You keep working, and then you can do it. They learn not to give up. In El Sistema, they tell them not to worry about mistakes. Going wrong is just something you do on the way to going right. So this is about building pride and confidence.
It meets them in a way that allows them to just move ahead a little at a time. And the little at a time that they move ahead, they very slowly develop a belief in themselves.
So one of the great things in Venezuela is they don't worry about going wrong. Going wrong for them is just something you do on the way to going right.
Last year at the Proms, here in the Royal Albert Hall, something amazing happened. orchestra of kids from the shanty towns of Venezuela came to play Shostakovich's 10th Symphony.
For kids that maybe haven't succeeded in anything else, maybe don't speak very well, don't do math, you see these kids getting better at everything because it gives them that kind of investment in their own identity. As I can do this.
We set the bar really high, and you know what? Children come to that place. I mean, you go in there with those expectations, and they rise to them.
It's not an audition program. Every child participates, and if they commit, they are guaranteed success.
Okay. One of the kids who graduated from El Sistema says, "I see music as a way to rescue children. It's a weapon against poverty. When a child can play an instrument well, it builds his self-worth. He works hard and succeeds. He can then build on that success. He does well in other areas of his life. To me, poverty creates a feeling of powerlessness, but music creates happiness. The children succeed in making beautiful sounds. This represents hope for families and communities." In 2009, the Gallup poll surveyed a lot of students in grades 5 to 12 throughout the U.S., and they found that hope predicted grades in college success better than high school grades or standardized test score. Hopeful students see obstacles as challenges to overcome. They focus on success and therefore experience greater positive affect and less distress. And these groups provide social support, a sense of social belonging. You're part of a group that's working together. An ensemble of dancers, a circus troupe, an orchestra of musicians. They learn to help one another, listen to one another, respect one another. Each is an important part of the whole. They're a community working toward a common shared goal. They learn to trust each other, rely on each other, and they're in this together. It's not that we're competing against each other. If one does better, everybody benefits. The primary skill you learn in El Sistema is not your instrument. The primary skill is working together. It's using the orchestra as a metaphor for how we work together as a society to become fantastic at working together. Okay, another short video.
The skill within El Sistema that you learn is not your instrument. That's not the primary skill. The primary skill is working together. It's actually using the orchestra as a metaphor for how we work together as a society. Maestro Breu is this famous phrase, the person who can play 3 notes is the teacher to the person who can play 2 notes.
When the children dance, their differences disappear, and they all become dancers, an ensemble of dancers.
It really teaches you to work with each other, not just an individual, but that they must count on each other, trust each other, be aware of each other, listen to each other.
So, what is art cirque? Circus, in fact, is just a pretext to create a circle of trust, and it's a space where people can communicate with each other, an area where you can work on yourself, trust the other, and dream.
And one of the important things in the programs is also mentoring, the close relationship with an adult who really cares. These activities, of course, engage the kids' passion and enthusiasm. You can see the joy on their faces. And of course, there's lots of motor skills and physical fitness elements. Even orchestra trains visual motor skills, bimanual coordination, fine motor skills, dance, of course, you can imagine. So they're developing motor skills like bimanual coordination and eye-hand coordination, lung capacity, strength and flexibility. So it's hitting all the elements. It's hitting the emotions, joy and passion. It's hitting the executive functions and challenging them and teaching them that they have to practice, 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 and building their confidence and pride. It's giving them a feeling of social support and belonging, being part of a group, we're in this together. And to develop the body, to develop your physical capabilities and physical fitness. Okay, now another video, a little bit longer one on a different youth circus group.
When I was younger, I had a lot of anxiety problems. I have severe food allergies, and growing up with that, it made me scared of almost everything. I was the kid in the back of the classroom that never raised their hand or spoke out at all. And then in 6th grade, I started doing circus, and the difference just in my first year was amazing. Even my parents started to notice, my teachers started to notice. I gained so much confidence.
Just the camaraderie that you get here. It's not like anything else. It's something very unique and very special, and I don't know. I love it. It's lessons. I've learned so many important lessons here.
I was just a happier person overall. Maybe it was because I knew I had found something that I was really passionate about. Maybe I knew that this was something that made me unique from the other kids at school. Maybe it was because it helped me with, like, it made me physically stronger as well, and that was a good feeling. But every year I just kind of grew into myself more and more, and by the time I graduated, I was always the one raising my hand, and I had opinions and I wasn't afraid to voice them anymore.
The kids here who go on to whatever they choose to do in any career, in school, in life, they carry this undeniable confidence and poise that I haven't seen in any kids ever. And it's really incredible now coming back as an adult and coaching and seeing these teenagers and having that kind of distance and perspective.
Anything you can think of that you learn in circus can be applied to real life.
The one thing that really helped me that I got here at Circus Juventus was really, for me, wire. It was really a meditative event, because when you're on the wire, you have to zone out everything else. Nothing else matters. Balance is obviously very important, but the main thing is focus. And so, when your life is crazy, when your life is chaotic, I was always able to come here, jump on the wire, take an hour, and there was nothing going on except for me and that 5/8" cable. And I've now been able to take that, which I learned, and when life gets a little bit too heavy, when life gets just too chaotic, I'm able to step out and just kind of take a breath and just meditate and just calm everything down and take care of what I need to take care of. And I can do that now without a tightrope, which is kind of nice.
I'm a Petty Officer 3rd Class in the United States Navy. I'm a nuclear machinist mate, so I work predominantly on nuclear reactors. I'm finishing training now, and my experience here at Circus Juventus helps a lot. Developed, drive, confidence. Obviously, the ability to work together as a team is very important in military training. So everything from boot camp on has drawn upon my circus experience.
Okay, so in this last video, you saw things that emphasize confidence, camaraderie, the ability to work together as a team, feeling happier because they're doing it. They found something they're passionate about, and it gave them a way to be unique, to be special. Many studies have looked at improving executive functions through things like computerized cognitive training. I talked a little bit about that yesterday. The results have generally been disappointing, with relatively narrow benefits. Why? I propose it's because training a particular skill in isolation produces fairly rote learning of specific task strategies and response patterns. What's needed is to engage kids in activities they can be passionate about, where improving executive functions is needed for what they want to do, where mentors and experiences in that activity inspire and instill pride and self-confidence. Similarly, although those who are more aerobically fit tend to have better executive functions, aerobic interventions rarely produce better executive functions than the control group. I propose that it's not about improving aerobic capacity per se, or improving a particular motor skill. It's about touching the hearts and minds of young people, as only a commitment to a holistic, coherent activity can do, be it soccer, taekwondo, band, circus, or theater. It doesn't have to be any of these activities. It could be almost any activity. It can be the way in, the means for disciplining the mind and enhancing resilience. Many activities that haven't been studied yet could well do this. It all depends on the spirit in which the activity is done, the way one does the activity, and the amount of time spent doing it, pushing yourself to keep getting better. The most important element is probably that the child really want to do it, so he or she will spend a lot of time at it. It's the discipline, the practice, that produces the benefits, right? You could have the best program for improving executive functions, and the kids don't like it, and they don't do it, and it doesn't do squat. The key is that we have kids do something they can put their heart and soul into. The activity could be almost anything. It could be caring for an animal. Maybe you have 4-H groups here. It could be a service activity like Free the Children, where the kids are working together to make the world better. These are acts of caring and generosity. They require executive functions, and you work together as a group. It could be almost anything outside. It could be gardening or almost anything else. If a child is emotionally, socially, and physically nourished, that child is more likely to show the full cognitive ability of which he or she is capable and do better in school. On the other hand, if children are stressed, sad, lonely, or not physically fit, those unmet needs will work against achieving our academic goals for the kids. Similarly, lack of social or emotional support, stress, or sadness often lie at the root of health problems. Asthma is a particularly clear example of this. Mainstream education may have it all wrong. Focusing exclusively on training cognition, as mainstream education tends to do, may not be the best or most efficient way to improve cognition. Addressing children's social, emotional, and physical needs may be key to whether they do well in school and in life. Helping disadvantaged children experience less stress, feel more socially supported, experience more joy, and improve their executive functions may be critical to reducing social disparities in academic achievement and health. Nurturing children socially, emotionally, cognitively, and physically, as the arts, play, and physical activities can do, may be critical for achieving the outcomes we all want for our kids.